I'm happy to be back in weather that makes more sense. I mean, here I am in my lighter sleeve stuff, which is nice, not having to wear a coat, a really thick jacket. I'm now pretty close to the East Coast. Man, it's like every single truck wants to turn on now. Of course, I'm at a truck stop. All right, so let's take it back a couple of days. I had like 7 hours and I think 51 minutes left on my clock when we last spoke. And it's only been a few days, like I think 3 days. But no, it's been 4 days. I've wanted to give an update though, because some interesting things are going on. Okay, the first thing is the next morning I got up, did my pre-trip. When I got up, it was 9 degrees out in North Dakota. That was pretty exciting. It's the snow that comes down, when it hits the ground, it basically, you have to clear it, even if it's in this dusty kind of form, because if you don't, then it gets compressed down, and then when the temperature either goes to ever so slightly melty and then it solidifies again, it will turn to ice. Or if it just compacts down enough and then more snow lands on top of it, it keeps compressing down and becomes ice. So the one thing I will say about driving across the north is they have plowing down to a science. It was pretty cool. I mean, I left where I was in North Dakota, Steele, North Dakota, and I started driving toward Minneapolis at about 8. I went to bed and I only was asleep for about 3 hours. Then I was awake and I just could not get back to sleep. I tossed and turned. So eventually at like 7:30, I said, fine, I'm going to go ahead and just get up, because there's only so much you can do when you're freezing and you're just not going to be able to lay there, even if you're warm and underneath multiple layers and stuff. If you're awake, you're awake. So I went ahead and said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start my day, because if something happens and I get overly tired, I'll pull over to a rest area. I'll still be within my 14-hour day if I want to take a nap. So I'll just log off and sleep for 14 hours, sleep for an hour or so, and I'll jump back on the road. So I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. So I got up, I started my day, my pre-trip about 8 p.m., headed out shortly thereafter after I did my pre-trip. And it was smooth sailing. It was just a little bit of dusty snow every now and then. And I got all the way to Minneapolis. And our drop lot's kind of on the other side of some trees from where the Mall of America is. So it's not that bad at all. Anyway, I got there. I did my post-trip. And then I looked at my clock. And I had just over an hour left. So it was not bad at all time-wise. Made really good time. It was basically 65 miles an hour the whole time. And it was pretty good. Now, I think I mentioned this, but my fuel assignments have been kind of wacky. Ever since we got the message that said fuel assignments are non-negotiable. It's our number one expense. You must do your fuel assignments. They've been wacky since then. That's been since December 1st. So it's been a little bit over a month now. It's been about 40 days, 42 days. And I tell you, I have emailed my DTL team saying they're wacky, they're not functioning correctly about a quarter of the time. Quarter of the time it's just not working right. And I don't know what update they did, but prior to December 1st, I missed 0 fuel assignments. I was always right on them. I did exactly what it said to. Even if I didn't want to stop, I still did it. And the only time I would stop outside of the fuel assignments was when when I was running low and my fuel assignment was too far away. But I used to be able to hit the update fuel levels button, and it would do an assessment, and after about 15 or so minutes, then it would say, oh, okay, you want to get a fuel assignment, and then it would give me one. It would give me one along my path. And that was cool. I liked being able to do that. The new fuel assignment system is very annoying. It doesn't work correctly about a quarter of the time. Maybe it's because I'm driving in the middle of the night, but still, it doesn't matter. It should still be one of those things where it works regardless of when you want to drive. because I'm sure I'm not the only person driving at night. Like team drivers, they half the clock is one driver, half the clock is the other driver. So it needs to work correctly. Now, I fueled up last time. I think I mentioned this in the last one, but I'll just summarize it real quick. I fueled up in Caldwell, Idaho, and then I think it was Caldwell, Idaho. And then I started driving across Oregon, and then I wanted to fuel up in Oregon. No, I fueled up before that. I don't remember when now. But when I started to go through the Rockies, I tried to fuel up in Oregon, but it wanted some driver number, whatever, fuel dispensary number, something like that. So I got really kind of frustrated and said, all right, I'm going to have to fuel up. And I was running low on fuel at that point. So I said, I'll fuel up right as I hit the Rockies. In Spokane, it was like $5.40 a gallon, something like that. But just like 18 miles away, as soon as you get over the clock into Idaho, it was something like, $3.60. It was like a huge, like $2 difference almost. So anyway, I was like, all right, well, I'll fuel up at some point. And driving overnight, I did not get a fuel assignment that night after I fueled up around midnight. Normally the fuel assignments come through about 3:30 a.m. I didn't get one. And then when I stopped in Three Forks, Montana, I didn't get one again the next night. 0 fuel assignments, not even one that just didn't make sense. It was just not a fuel assignment. So at that point, I was down to my estimate number of miles you can drive on the fuel that you have was down to like 60. I got to fuel up someplace, but in the north, in Montana, and in North Dakota, the Pilots and Flying J's are far away from each other. It was almost 200 miles from one to another. So as soon as I got to Beach, North Dakota, I fueled up. I said, you know what? I got to fuel up. And at this point, I was like, you know what? I don't know where my next fuel assignment's going to be, and I'm not going to be going on fumes, because what people say online is if you're going to do, here's the truck is getting really, really close as he's backing up. Anyway, it says if you're in freezing temperatures, you don't want to get less than about a half to a quarter of a tank. At this point, I was running on fumes. I knew I only had to go about another 150, 175, 200 miles, whatever it was, until I got to Steele, North Dakota. And so if I was going to shut down, I needed to make sure I had at least half a tank of fuel. So I went ahead and filled up at that point because, I got to do it, right? So I went ahead and did this and said, I really don't have a choice because it did not give me a fuel assignment for 2 days. I woke up that morning in Steele, North Dakota, and I drove on into Minneapolis. I had to stop and pause and give you that little bit of backstory because it comes into play today. So I got to Minneapolis. I shut down. Temperature was about 20 some odd degrees, light little mist of a snow, and I had about an hour left on my clock. So I was like, all right, cool, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Forgot to log out, though. I got there at like 3 a.m. I have a friend in Minneapolis that was going to come by and pick me up, and we were going to hang out, but I forgot to log out. And I said, you know what? If he's not going to get up until probably about 8 or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep for a bit. I'm going to take a nap. I woke up. I just kind of brain dead looked over at the tablet. On duty. I'm like, no, I'm still on duty. How long's it been? 4 hours and 40 minutes. I'm like, yikes. And it was still listed as a post trip. So I was like, okay, let me see. So I went ahead and said, is it possible to adjust this on the fly? So I quickly logged out, and then I said, can I adjust this? Well, I went into edit, and luckily post trip is one of those things where you can adjust and say, well, how long did you do your post trip for? There are sometimes things that you can go in and say, for a part of this, I was doing this activity. Well, I selected the time I was in there doing my post trip, and it created a new entry after that for the extra time. It was like, okay, what's this? And I was able to select off duty. I'm like, yeah. So I was able to select off duty. So that way I wasn't like sleeping for 4.5 hours, whatever it was, off the clock. Officially off the clock, but I was on the clock at that point. So I was really happy that they allowed me to make that adjustment without having to call up the Schneider, payroll team or whatever it is, tablet support, and ask for some help there. That was nice. Okay, now this driver has this back up. Now he's straight. Okay, so I did my shutdown 34. I was hanging out with my friend. When I got back to the truck, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep for about 5 hours, 4 hours, something like that. It was about 30. I think after I woke up that morning after my nap, I think it was around 26 degrees or so when I got up. And then after that, when the sun came up, it was between about 31 and 34 the entire time I was in Minneapolis. The next day I got back to the truck. It was about 5 o'clock p.m. I went ahead and called it there. I went ahead and wrapped up, went to bed, and got up. What time was it? I think I pretty much, I set an alarm for closer to like 10 or 11, but I wasn't able to sleep past about 9. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'll go ahead and start my day, because I was awake. I was alert. So I was like, I'll go ahead and start my day. Headed out of Minneapolis. And I was expecting there to be a little bit of snow, because, Hurricane Finn's pretty much, or Winter Storm Finn's pretty much past us. Elmer is pretty much past us. There's Winter Storm Jessica that was the one that was behind Finn. So I was driving through a little bit of Finn when it was still rain, and then I caught the tail end of Finn when it was snow, and then got kind of in front of Finn, but was above it when I was driving across the north part of America. And then got all the way to where I was going, and by then Finn dissipated by the time I was in Minneapolis for my shutdown by 34. The next day, I got up in the morning, and from Minneapolis, I looked at it, and it was like 11:58, I think, miles to Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, to do the first drop, and then it was like 38 miles, I think, to get to Cinnamon and do my second. But the way I looked at it is, if I was going to be driving that, if I did, let's just say 630 miles the first day, that would leave me with just over 500 to do the second day. By the time I got there to and shut down after the first day, I would have about 500 miles left to do. So if I drove overnight, did 500 miles, and then got to Phoenixville, then went to Cinnamon Sin and did my delivery, that last little bit is lower speed limit. It's like a 55 speed limit. You go through a lot of tunnels as you get on Interstate 76, which is a toll road, and you start. They also got a lot of snow a few days ago during the Elmer situation. It was like 6 to 10 inches of snow up there, and it shut down, and power was out, and just all kinds of fun chaos. Luckily, I wasn't there. But this morning, stopping in a couple of the service plazas, I did see some snow piled up taller than me in places. Anyway, so as I was driving, I thought about go ahead and pressing on ahead and stopping after I did the Phoenixville stop. But then I looked at it, and based on my time, I had like 3 hours and 10 minutes left. So I said, you know what, I could pull this up. But when I looked at it, it was a lot of speed limit 55s to Phoenixville, which would put me arriving just over 2 hours away. And then if I were to stop at the nearest truck stop after that, it would put me at arriving there pretty much at the 3 hour mark. Because truck stops around the Philadelphia area, New York, they are only in certain areas. And I was looking at Trucker Path, the app, and there were not very many truck stops. They only had like 9 parking spaces in one AB. They had 15 in another, and they had like 10 in another. And those are kind of crapshoots. Can you get one? Can you not? If you pull into one of those, and they don't have a parking spot, you're going to have to drive someplace else. Or you can wait for a bit and see if somebody clears out. But it just seemed too risky to me. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I'm at the Loves right now in Londonderry, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's about, with the speed limit, it's at like 800. It's at like 87, 88 miles, something like that. And with the speed limit 55, by the time you get to some back roads, kind of close, and it's going to be closer to 2 hours. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go ahead. Well, I say early. It's not nearly as early as it's been lately. I'll get up around, 3:34, whatever it happens to be. And I'll get to Phoenixville at 6 a.m. And then I'll get to Cinnamon Sin. I have my ETA set for 9 a.m. I'm hoping to get a pre-assignment today. That way I can continue to go. That's one of the reasons why I didn't change my ETA to drop off Londonderry today. Because even if I dropped off Londonderry today, there's no guarantee I'll get a pre-assignment today. And if that's the case, I would change my assignment tomorrow to 6 a.m. for Cinnaminson, because I know they'll take me at 6 a.m. The problem is, even if I can make it to a truck stop, which I would probably want to go to Carney's Point, because I love that one right there in New Jersey, like 300 and some odd spaces, and always find a spot there. But even if I could get there, if I don't get a pre-assignment, I'll be waiting for a pre-assignment. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to stick to the plan, because if I make a last minute change and they don't have me on the list to get an assignment until tomorrow, then I'm going to be waiting regardless. Even if I could make everything today, if I changed all my ETAs and updated it today, they weren't planning on sending me an assignment tomorrow, then I'm still going to have to get an assignment tomorrow. And it would be better for me to get my pre-assignment by the time I get to the place I'm picking up. I guarantee you tomorrow at Cinnaminson, they're going to have something for me. So since I'll be there. So most pre-assignments don't come through until about the 10 o'clock hour, something like that, or 11 o'clock hour. So if I don't get a pre-assignment later this afternoon, between like 4 and 5:30, then I'm probably going to get a pre-assignment late tomorrow morning. So it would be better for me not to try to press on ahead, drop off today, drop off early tomorrow in Cinnaminson, and then sit there twiddling my thumb with my 14-hour clock elapsing with nothing to do. It would be better for me, since tomorrow's Saturday, it'd be better for me to get up, be in Phoenixville at 6 a.m., even if they can't get to me until close to 7 or 7:30. I'll just sit there and wait. And then I'll get to Cinnaminson. I don't anticipate there being a whole lot of traffic going through Philly on a Saturday morning at 7 or 8 a.m. I could be wrong, but I can't imagine it being really bad. I only have 38 miles to go anyway, and it's all interstate, with exception of the last like little bit. And I have a friend that lives near there anyway. So even if I'm waiting for a job, I'll hang out with him, which would be good. Now, there's been some interesting things that I wanted to mention. Number one is frozen windshield wipers. When I left Minneapolis and I was driving towards Ohio, where I ended up, when I left Minneapolis, I was headed towards, I had to get to the other side. I wanted to get to the other side of Chicago before 6 a.m. Not going to be a problem, because that's 8 hours. So I drove overnight, and the biggest issue was, normally I will try to stop and I'll start looking at the rest areas. And as I see the signs for rest areas, also next rest area is 44 miles. I'm like, okay. So I have it written on my whiteboard as to the mileage it was when I stopped. So I know when I hit the road again, what my odometer reading is. And it's just usually the last 3 digits. So if it says 364, then I'll know that I can only go a maximum of 150 miles. They'll say 364 at, 2:12. And that means 2:12 a.m. So by 5:12 a.m., I need to stop and do my load securement check. Or by the time I get to 150 miles over whatever it happens to be. I forgot what the miles were I just said a second ago, but you got to stop. That's the requirement. You're supposed to stop every 150 miles or every 3 miles or 3 hours, whichever comes first. And so if I see a rest area, I'll say, okay, it's 44 miles to the next one. I'll look at my odometer and I'll say the mental math is, okay, there we are. No, I'm not going to stop just yet. And then I'll go on to the next one. One thing I will point out is the temperature, remember, was right around the 30-degree mark. It's right around freezing. So what I was running into, and this is something for you to note if you're ever driving in cold weather, snow hits your windshield wiper, starts to make smears. And what you need to do is clear that off, because if not, it just starts to clump up and it's obscuring your view. So you use the windshield wiper. Now, our windshield wiper fluid is supposed to be good up to negative 20 degrees. It was not coming out of the wiper. Now, maybe it's still fluid, but it's not coming out of the windshield wiper, so I was just trying to use it to clear. But I was noticing that it wasn't swishing stuff out of the way anymore. It started to clump up on the windshield in chunks, and the windshield wipers seemed to be going right over top of them. And so I was like, okay, that's not good. It's going to start obscuring my view, so I need to pull over. So I pulled over, And I came to realize that there's chunks of ice from the snow. As the windshield wiper comes around, it grabs the windshield wiper, then it gets more and more, and as it swipes, it is clumping up. And then it's clumping up inside the wiper, so you have to pick up the wiper and drop it a few times to break up that ice. Otherwise, the ice forms around the windshield wiper, and all it's doing is swiping the icy windshield wiper across the window, and it's not clearing anything. So that to me was kind of wild, because I don't think I'd ever seen that before. I was wearing, I took off my coats, and so that way I could run the heater full blast on the front windshield, hoping that would melt it enough. It wasn't working. So I'd jump out, I'd be like sweating almost. Jump out, do my load securement check. By the time I'd get back in, I'd be cold. And so I would turn the truck back on, get the heater pumping again. And then probably for the first 45 minutes, it would be no problem. But after about 45 minutes, I started to run into a couple little streaks on the outskirts of the window that were little places where the windshield wiper, I could tell, because you can look at it and I can see them right here. You would see snow starting to accumulate usually on the tip of it. So as soon as that started happening, I would notice that it wasn't clearing as low, which is out of my, I couldn't see the dark sky since I drive at night, but it was going to start hindering my vision a little bit. And then as it started filling up with more and more ice, it started to reduce my vision more. Then a chunk would appear in the middle, and then it started to get really bad and I had to pull over again. So instead of doing load securement checks every 125 to 150 miles, I was doing them about every 60 miles or so as I'm driving down the road. The roads were clear though. It was still that kind of, they still had that stuff sprayed on the road that is like a de-icing solution. That was still over there, and it was still mainly focused in the right lane. And so that really wasn't an issue driving through that. I mean, there were trucks flying past me. There were some trucks that were taking it kind of slow, and you could pass them, no problem. And when they were going 50 miles an hour and a speed limit 65, I looked at that and I said, you know what? It is completely clear. It is not unsafe on the road if I were to pass them. So I would go ahead and pass them. And then I would get going down the road. If I ever thought for a split second that the road was going to start icing over or something like that, or I looked ahead and saw what looked like snow or ice not clearing, I would keep an eye on the time and the temperature. And it was always someplace in the 20s or 30s, and it was not an issue. The biggest issue I was running into was my windshield wiper not functioning because it was freezing over. But what you would do is basically I would stand up on the stair, stand on the tire, stand on the other stair, and lift up the wiper and drop it a couple of times. And it would break up all the ice on there. Then I'd go around and do the same thing on the other side. And then I would let the heater go and let it just sit there blasting the window. So the truck was already warmed up, so I would let it happen and I would watch it, and the heat comes out down there, and it was at its hottest pretty much right where the wiper is. So as soon as I'd see it glistening around the edge of the little bit of snow that was like the blade is here and it's clear here, but the snow that was a little bit on the sides, as soon as I'd see it glistening a little bit, I knew it was melting. So I was like, all right, good, we're good to hit the road. But with the newly dropping snow, it wasn't as dry anymore. So it wasn't just wiping right off. It wasn't a wintry mix, but it was hitting the window, melting a fraction, maybe because of the heat on the window at that point, maybe. But when it wasn't, but I started originally and I was just layered up and I was only using the windshield wiper to clear it, and even then it was doing it. So I don't think that was the case, because then I mixed it up after a while and started just full blast heat on the window. Why is my arm so dry? Probably because it's been cold the past few days. So that's something to keep in mind, that you gotta clear your vision and make sure you can see, because your windshield wipers, if those start freezing over, it's not going to clear anything. It's just going to be a clump of ice on the bottom of the windshield wiper and then swishing that around, not clearing anything. So that's crazy. The other interesting thing is I mentioned fuel assignments weren't working. I had not had a fuel assignment. I had a fuel assignment in Caldwell, Idaho, but I wasn't going to go on I-84 to go to Caldwell and then get on I-80. I've been looking in the forums the past few days. There have been drivers that were routed straight through Winter Storm Finn, and like Wyoming, for example, posted in their in their Facebook group that's for weather conditions and road conditions, weather and road conditions. And they were commenting about all the ice that's on I-80 and stuff. And there was somebody who posted a video, and they were just cruising along at like 30 miles an hour, and there was vehicles all over the road with them. I had it smooth sailing on I-90, and the roads were completely clear. They were not ice because I avoided all that stuff. But yet, after that Caldwell, Idaho fuel assignment disappeared, right after I went through, got into Montana, I hadn't had a fuel assignment in a few days. So I needed fuel as I was going into the Rockies. So I fueled up in Idaho, right there at the edge. And I went ahead and filled all the way up because I was like, look, I don't have a fuel assignment. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I did not get a fuel assignment when I was in Three Forks. And normally it'll give you a fuel assignment even if it's only going to be for 50 miles. Even if it's going to be for 40 miles, it'll go ahead and give you one if it's going to be cheaper than places you're going. So go ahead and stop and fuel up. It will tell you either fill up, or it will tell you 40 miles or 40 gallons, or you're going to get 38 gallons. Or sometimes it's a really weird amount because it only wants you to fill up just a certain amount of gallons because it knows that you're getting low and it wants to give you enough gallons so that way you're going to make it to where you're going. So no problem. The issue was I was approaching North Dakota completely out. I think I only had my odometer, or my fuel gauge said that I could only go like another 50 or 60 miles. And at that point, and I knew it was going to be tight. So I sat on cruise control and I just watched it, and it went down from like 300 miles down to less than that as I was approaching, because I was looking at it thinking, okay, if I have to turn around, the nearest place, if I needed to fuel up, it was going to be cheapest if I went to that particular stop. So I went ahead and did that. Stopped in North Dakota. Now, as I was driving out of Minneapolis towards where I stopped last night, yesterday morning. Geez, what am I saying? When I stopped yesterday morning, I stopped in, where was that in Indiana? It was like a mile and a half south of Michigan and about 8 miles from, it was on I-80 at this point, and it was about 8 or 9 miles away from Ohio. So it was someplace in Indiana. What was it called? Can't remember. It doesn't matter. But I was starting to run out of fuel again, and I had not had a fuel assignment since North Dakota. And I hit the button that that says it's in workflow. It's called Update Fuel Levels. I hit that button. It used to pause for a little bit, 15, 20 minutes, and then it would say new fuel assignment has been added, giving you one. It didn't get it since December 1st, when they did some sort of a tweak and they mandated that you must stop for fuel assignments. It broke. Sometimes it doesn't give you one anymore. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's a valid one. Sometimes it gives you one behind you. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so the fuel assignment it gave me was really annoying, because that fuel assignment, the first fuel assignment it gave me was behind me. When I hit the update fuel assignment, it gave me one that was miles behind me. And so I was like, okay, I don't need fuel just yet. But I'll stop at another place and I'll hit the fuel assignment button again. And it removed that one, the one that popped up naturally at 3:30 a.m. That was the one that popped up behind me. It was telling me to basically turn around and go back to I was like, look, I'm past it. If you want me to stop at because I don't only get paid for those miles one time. If you want me to stop someplace, put it in front of me. Don't make it miles behind me, which is going to take me an hour or two out of my way to go to the fuel assignment, unless you want to pay me for it. And still, it doesn't seem logical for me to have to go about, if it's 100 miles or so, to go to a fuel assignment. I've lost 100 miles driving 50 miles there and 50 miles back, plus any of my own time. 2 hours almost of my own time. Give me a fuel assignment in front of me, otherwise I'm not doing it. I know that they say they're non-negotiable, you must do them, but that's ridiculous to me. Anyway, so I was approaching, I needed to stop and do my 30-minute break. So what I did is I pulled up into Gary, Indiana, OC, which I'd never been to before. I stopped in the fuel island. I did not, I don't know if you can fuel up there, But I went ahead and cleaned off my windows, cleaned off everything, got it nice and clean, because all that stuff they put on the road to de-ice, it's messy. It's really messy, and it messes up your windows. It gets you all this gunk, making it very difficult for you to see through. So you have to constantly wipe off your windows and your mirrors. So anyway, I did that. And as I was trying to leave the Gary OC, I was told, you have what do they call it? A priority maintenance appointment. A priority maintenance that you have to do. And I'm like, huh? What does that mean? They said, I can't let you out of the gate. You got to go to talk to maintenance. Okay. So I went ahead and I said, well, can you let me out and I'll just U-turn around and come back? Nope. Got to back up. Okay. So I had to back up. There was a truck behind me. I had to get him to back up. And then I was able to get out of the Gary OC, get out of the exit of Gary OC. And I went to talk to maintenance. And I gave her my truck number, and she kind of looked at it and said, yeah, we have a priority on priority repair on the heater in your sleeper berth. And I said, yeah, I mean, that's all well and good. If do y'all want to look at it here? And she just kind of, her eyes got big, and she's like, we're really backed up here. And I said, if you want to look at it, you can. But she's like, we wouldn't get to repair to it. We probably wouldn't be able to get to it until probably sometime late tomorrow. I'm not waiting for that. I told her, and anyway, I had already called at that point the Schneider service department in Atlanta and told them I have home time scheduled for the 19th, which is 7 days from today. I said, I have preventive maintenance that I got to do. So service appointment, I need to make a service appointment. So I made that appointment, and they're going to do that. And then when I get there, I'll tell them the heater is messed up and you should get that too. And they're just like, okay, well, but you should get the heater looked at. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe when it was in single digits, it was a bigger issue. Now the temperatures are coming up. I said right now, at that point, I think it was like around 30 degrees where I was in Gary. And I said, I'm about to go into a place where it's going to be 50, and they probably will send me down south next. I said, so it'll probably be temperatures of, in the 60s or 70s. I don't need the heater down there. So I said, it would have been nice to have not had it go out when I was in when I was in the Rocky Mountains and going through Montana and North Dakota. That's when it would have been great to have the heater working, but I wasn't able to. So now it can be fixed when I do my preventive maintenance. And she's like, okay. So she took the hold off of that, allowing me to leave, but then I could get out. And again, I understand. I know exactly why Schneider did it, because they want me to be taken care of as a driver. It was my choice to ignore it. But knowing that if I go into an OC, I could have an issue leaving. That's the reason why I'm not stopped right now in the Carlisle, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, OC. I'm instead at the Loves. That's about 18 miles or so past it on 76. The reason I don't want to go there is because if I go and talk to maintenance and they say, okay, we'll email the gate so that way they'll let you out. If I do that on my way in and talk to them, that I could be sitting there in the out trying to make it to my 6 a.m. appointment and have them say, no, you got to go talk to maintenance. And then I have to back out, go talk to maintenance again, and then leave. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to not go to an OC again until I can get my heater until I'm ready to get my heater fixed, which is going to be when I have my home time scheduled. There may be people saying, if it's broken, you should get it fixed. You're right. It is not a function of the truck that is malfunctioning, that is under the hood, a maintenance related thing. It is right now, my bunk heater is just turned off. It's just turned off. I'm not trying to turn it on and force it to work. I'm not trying to fight it. I'm not, it is my choice. That is a comfort thing as far as I'm concerned. So as long as I'm not trying to turn it on and the bunk heater's like trying to work and it's further breaking, no, it's just off. It's been off for, however many days since I realized that doing factory resets and trying to reset it does not clear it, because people online were saying some of the errors that it gives you, and if it pops up certain codes, then you can clear the codes, and then it will pop up and it'll let you use the heater again. And so I tried it. As soon as the check heater came back on, I turned it right back off because I don't want to break it. So anyway, drove out of Gary, continued east. Now, at that point, I had a fuel assignment, and then at 3:30 a.m. it disappeared. It updates fuel assignments, about 3:30 a.m. It had a fuel assignment directly on my path I had been looking at that showed up while I was in Minneapolis. And it disappeared at 3:30 a.m. I'm like, great. So where's my fuel assignment now? Because I need fuel. I'm running low again. I hadn't fueled up since I was in North Dakota, the very first exit in North Dakota that had a Pilot Flying J. So I hit the button for a fuel assignment, and it gives me one that's too far away. It gives me one that would be too far away that I would be out of fuel, and I would stall out before I got there. So I stopped at a Pilot Flying J that is on the way, and I said, well, if that one's going to be about another 100 and some odd miles past, 120 miles, I'm only going to put in 40 gallons. I said 40 gallons from here, with me stopping overnight in, I would stop overnight and have about a quarter of a tank, which is the low end of where they say to be if you're in freezing temperatures. They say stop with a quarter to a half a tank. So I said, since I'm running and it's literally counting down the miles again, I said, I'll put 40 gallons in. That would give me that. And it did. It gave me right at about a quarter of a tank. So that way, when I shut down last night, in Indiana, I had a quarter of a tank. So that's the safe level. This morning, I got up early and drove down 80 some more, and then drove on 76. And I told you that it gave me the fuel assignment that was behind me. And then when it gave me a fuel assignment, it was when I finally got it, I kept hitting the update fuel levels, and it gave me a fuel assignment, update fuel level, it gave me a fuel assignment. It kept giving me over and over again, and it wasn't giving anything. Finally, it gave me one that was too far away. So I had to do something. And then the one it gave me, I was like, cool, I'll stop for that one. This morning, I stopped at that fuel assignment, and I was like, yes. So I went ahead and fueled up the rest of the way. Now, I did not start at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock p.m. last night. I started at midnight. So I had driven, couple hours or something like that when I did that fuel assignment this morning. I went ahead and fueled up. By the time I hit the road again, it would have been after that, though, because I hit the road. I was about 20 minutes down the road, and Newell fuel assignment received. And I looked at it, and it was for 20 miles in front of me. Fuel assignments are driving me crazy. I just got through fueling up. The thing said I had the ability to go 1,380 miles. As soon as that popped up there, it said new fuel assignment, and I clicked the button, which updates it in the tablet and starts sending me there. I looked at it, and it said 19 point, whatever miles there. It was less than 20 miles, so it was 19 point something. And I was looking at that thinking, you got to be kidding me. Because I just got through fueling up. It didn't realize, it doesn't look at your fuel level when it gives you a fuel assignment at 3:30 a.m. It just gives you something. And I don't know if it's because it gave me three days in a row, it didn't give me a fuel assignment or give me a valid one. So sorry to vent, but geez, come on, tablet. The GPS is already bad enough. It's already crashing on me constantly. And every time it crashes, it pops up the next thing in workflow. And if it's a stupid fuel assignment, it will pop it up as the next location. Doesn't matter if I was on my way to if I put in there a fuel or a truck stop I want to go to or whatever, it just automatically says, okay, well, here's your next place. And if you hit the X button to take you and say, no, don't do that, it sends you back to some previous screen, like the home screen, then pops up the thing that says, nope, the screen's locked because you're driving. You hit the navigation button again, and it pops up and says, okay, so we're going to go to the next thing on your list, which is your fuel assignment. or your delivery address, whichever it happens to be if there is no fuel assignment. I'm like, I don't want to go there. So the only way you can make it work is if you hit the button that says fine, navigate me, then you hit the other one that says yes, go. Then you have to hit cancel. Then you have to go back through the recent addresses and find the one for it to go to. Then it will update. And then the tablet will crash again within an hour. So this thing is starting to drive me crazy. By the time you're watching this, I really hope that Schneider gets their act together, because this GPS program, New Jill, Global Nav, this is a piece of crap the way it functions right now. I mean, there are parts of it that I like better than the old thing, but only a couple of parts. I like the fact that when you get close to your destination, it puts up an overhead satellite view. That is nice. I like the fact that you can go under your locations when it goes to navigate, and then you can scroll down and you can see Schneider drop lots. Usually you can only see them within 100 or 200 miles, and that includes the Schneider OCs. But even then, as I found when I was in Colorado, Denver area, if you press it, it might not take you exactly to the drop lot that's in Compass. It will sometimes take you near there. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't one of our drop lots. Then you have to go into Compass and find it and say, why did you take me here instead? Wrong address. So anyway, I updated it in the tablet, flagged it, and then sent him a message saying, this is not the right drop lot. Those are a couple of things I like about it. I like the fact that you can search for fuel stops, and if you do a search for fuel locations, it will show you the fuel stops near you, and you can use that to help find gas stations nearby. It did not, the old local nav did not list all gas stations. It would usually only gives you some, but now you can hit it and it will bring up a list of all the ones, well, at least more of them. And so that way you can choose. You can probably, if you look at the Flying J pilot app, for example, you say, I'm trying to get to pilot Flying J number 29, which was one of the ones I looked up recently. Then if you bring that thing up, you can see pilot number 29 and just hit that button, it will take you there. So, but that's irritating. To me, I did not miss one company assigned fuel assignment until they updated it. And they sent us the thing that said it's non-negotiable. You must stop at all fuel assignments. But then after that, after that is when I started missing them. Because they would send me fuel assignments that made no sense. They were fuel assignments that were either behind me or off route. There was one that I was driving down I-10. And I was driving across the bottom of America, and it was saying, okay, now go north on like 15 up to I-40, go on the other side of Albuquerque, and then do a fuel assignment there. That was 220 miles from where I was, 220 miles out of the way. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's the stupidest thing. So that, or a fuel assignment that's behind me, or giving me a fuel assignment that is only a few miles after. The worst one was when I was in Fernley, Nevada. I had a fuel assignment in Fernley, Nevada. I stopped for the night. I fueled up. Then I pulled over, parked, and stopped for the night. Came up at 3:30 a.m., which at that point in Nevada, I would think maybe I was in Mountain Time at that point. Might have been Pacific. Whenever it was, it popped up just about midnight. 12:30, 1:30, whatever, midnight 30, it popped up and said new fuel assignment. But I turned the volume down at night because the thing constantly loses GPS and tells you in the middle of the night, your GPS is not connected. This may affect your navigation. I'm like, I don't care. I'm logged out. Anyway, I'm tired of hearing the GPS complain, so I turn it off when I'm off shift. Anyway, it gave me another fuel assignment though overnight, and it was for the other Fernley, Nevada Flying J pilot that was 2 miles away. I was at one exit, and exits are numbered by how many miles they are. So like between exit 10 and 20 is 10 miles. Between 20 and 30 is 10 miles. I was at one exit, like exit whatever it was, 38, 40, 90, 70, whatever it was. And this was the other Fernley, Nevada, so it was 2 miles away, the one I stopped at when I was going west. And I looked at that and shook my head, said, I just fueled up. I'm not going to go 2 miles down the road, literally 2, when I said, all right, let's see what it is. And I hit the button, and it said it was like 2.2 miles away. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go there. That's stupid. I just fueled up. So that's another fuel assignment I ignored. But then As long as my next fuel assignment is not at least 600 miles or however many miles I'm planning on driving that day, I'll go ahead and just leave it in the system. I'm not going to say no, don't, or hit the update fuel levels button, because it's going to remove it at 3:30 a.m. Eastern anyway. So that's usually what I end up doing, is I let it sit there, I let it do its thing, and then it updates the fuel level and on its own at 3:30 a.m. Sometimes it will remove a good fuel assignment and replace it with one that's too far away. And I'm like, when the thing is telling me I can only go another 120 miles with my current fuel level, and you give me a fuel assignment that's 350 miles away, how am I supposed to make it to that? So, last thing I'll leave you with. The reason I decided to do this update and to send a message is because I got a message from the DTL team. And it said, Alan, you did a non-compliant fuel stop. What's up with that? Call the DTL team, which anytime I call them, I sit on hold for an hour and they still never answer. Or sometimes it's even longer than that. I'll sit on hold for 2 hours while I'm doing other things. And so it just sits there, unless you would like to respond via the tablet. So I responded via the tablet. Okay, new message came up telling me to update my hazmat, which, by the way, crashes on the tablet. I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, it said, Alan, what's up? You did a non-compliant stop at the Pilot Flying J in Beach, North Dakota. Either, if you don't want to respond via tablet, call in and tell us. And so what I wrote was, and I will tell you exactly what my answer was. Alan, you fueled up, this is what they said. Hi, Alan, you fueled up at Flying J in Beach, North Dakota, which was non-compliant. What happened? Call DTL team if it's faster than a message. I wrote back, I didn't receive a fuel assignment for 3 days, and that was day 2. I was below a quarter of a tank entering North Dakota and needed fuel. I had no idea that was a non-compliant stop and not sure and I'm still not sure what non-compliant versus compliant outside of fuel assignments would mean. I also emailed the DTL team about fuel assignment system being glitchy. Yesterday, it assigned me a fuel assignment that was miles behind me. Today, I stopped at the fuel assignment, and about 30 miles down the road, it sent me another fuel assignment a few miles in front of me. It's pointless to fuel up 40 miles after a fill up. I said, I'd like to point out that my emails about nonsensical fuel assignments such as these were not answered or replied to. I did speak to certain DTL a few days back about goofy fuel assignments and was told to use common sense if it didn't seem logical. One more thing to note. Hitting the update fuel levels button in workflow only gives us a fuel assignment some of the time now, not all the time. When it doesn't, I'm less than a quarter of a tank with no fuel assignment and in single digit weather, like the other day in North Dakota. I need to get fuel. What should I do in the future if I have no fuel assignment and need fuel? Final note. If you look back prior to December 1st, I never missed any fuel assignment. As I said in my email, if the fuel assignment system was updated when the head manager emailed out about fuel assignments being non-negotiable, as I said in my email, if the fuel assignment system was updated when he emailed us about fuel assignments being non-negotiable, something they did messed it up about 25% of the time. Prior to December 1st, I got logical fuel assignments, but after December 1st, they sometimes make sense and sometimes don't. I never missed a fuel assignment until they started to make no sense. That's the truth of the matter. And that's exactly what I just got through telling you. I have not yet heard from them. Another fun note, the message it just got through sending me, telling me I needed to do my hazmat training since it's after January. I'm supposed to do my hazmat. Well, I jumped into our education system, which is a multi-stage thing. You're supposed to do your hazmat training. And I tried to. You watch the first video. It gets to the very end. It says, this is the end of this course, but there's still more to go. Click the X button and then to take you to the next module. I click the X button and it says, continue where you left off on part 1. Or start at the beginning. I hit continue where you left off and it pops up and says, this is the end of this course, but there's still more to go. and click the X in the upper right corner. So I let it play until it stops. I hit the X and it says continue where you left off or start over. I did this a few times before I said, okay, fine, let's start over. And then it replayed the stupid course. I can't get past it. I'm supposed to now do it from my computer or my laptop using my phone's hotspot as a hotspot, watching videos forever how long. So what I am going to do, since I'm already out of data on my phone and I'm not about to pay for more, when I stop for my next shutdown, which even though I have home time scheduled for this upcoming Friday, I'm probably going to run out of hours again, which I can't judge it correctly. If I'm out for 3 weeks, then I end up resetting twice and then usually end up running out of time at the very end and having, because I'll hit it hard for 5 days or something like that. Then I end up having to reset just to have one more day of like 6 hours on the road. I don't want to reset when I'm about to go home. So I'll stay out for 3.5 weeks, and then something happens, and I end up running out of hours a day before I have to before I have my home time start. So I have to reset then. If I'm out for 4 weeks, something will happen, and the same exact thing will happen. I will work, and then I'll have to reset a day or two before I have to go home. It was that way when I was on my way home for Christmas. My home time started on December 23rd, and it was like December 21st. I was like, okay, well, I have to stop now. And then I left December 21st because I had to shut down on the 19th. I ran out of hours. And so I started on the 21st and drove. That was when I drove to Indianapolis. That PODS location was on the ball. And then I got down to Lexington or wherever it was, whatever the town was, Louisville in Kentucky. And that one had nobody in the office. You had to disappear and you had to wait until they came back. And they didn't have one of my pods. They were like, oh yeah, we're picking it up later today. I'm like, well, on my paperwork, it shows it should be here. I said, yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's been doing that lately. So I ended up having to wait for about 5.5 hours. And this was in Indianapolis, set me up for success. I had a fighting chance, even though it was a slim one, of getting the pods and getting before rush hour traffic, dropping off in Atlanta and then getting home a day early. That was if I ran into no traffic, and that was if I was just smooth sailing all the way down. Probably would have run into some traffic. I probably would have been stopped about, 80, 90 miles away from Atlanta. Truth be known. But still, I had hope. And I really wanted to. So anyway, that is the latest. That was basically the situation that's been going on. That's why I chose to do an update right now, even though it's been like 4 days. Fuel assignments are driving me crazy. Frozen windshield wipers are another good note. Now I have home time scheduled for a week from today, so I'll probably do my last update until my home time is over, which they messaged me about and said we have home time scheduled for you, and it was like 3 weeks later that my home time actually started, and I was like, no. And because you're required to put in a request for home time 2 weeks in advance. So on the day that my request would need to be in, which was a week ago today, I got this message said, we're going to put your home time in for like February 12th or something. And I'm like, no. It's like, I said, no, I was going to submit my home time request when I finished my day today. Gotta love these loud trucks. So anyway, I put in my request, and later he then said, if you're going to put in a home time request, please let us know the city. So if you're watching this, you're going to put in a request for home time, let them know in your home time request what city you're going to shut down in. Because if you don't, then they have to go back and look in a different directory to find out what city you live in and route you there. So that will help them out tremendously if you can do that. There's a little note for you. All right, that's it for this one. Take care. Be safe, buddy. You're heading out there. Loud truck. All right, that's it.